minimize this. All right. So yeah, state is basically just an object that holds some information, whether it's a UI component or any type of user interface thing that you're trying to reflect to the user. That's going to change over the life cycle of the component. So state just allows us to like make changes in the components without having to make anything crazy. It just re-renders it and displays it to the user. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to move this object here, this array, into its own file, just so we can clean up the code a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file over here, and this is just going to hold our data here so we can access it easily. So books data, and then over here we're going to import books data. And make sure we have our stuff good to go. So import books data. There we go. Let's see really quickly. Oh, it's just books. What is it giving me? Let me just undo that. Data from, there we go. There we go. All right. So got that over here, got our array over here with our books, and put it over here. And then also what we're gonna do really quickly is I'm gonna go ahead and create a new component. And this is gonna be like a demo of state basically. So we'll just name this state.js, import React. And also let's add it into our index so we can. So you can have it over here. And let me create a component. And state. Get that all set up over here. And basically what we're gonna do is just gonna have a little title here. I'm gonna put that up top. Let's add it into the code here. All right. All right, so we have that. We're also gonna add a button to it so we can change it. Make sure there's all this stuff. Let's make sure we add the parent div. All right, so we got a button and we got the title. So basically what we want to do with this button is we want to change the heading here by clicking the button. So we're gonna need first off, we're gonna need an onClick method. So make sure that I add that in there. And then we're also going to add the actual method. And this is where we're going to do we're going to be handling state in here. So we have this here, and we have our in here. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to import the state hook. And basically what a hook is basically just a function that basically just literally just a function, and it hooks into the React lifecycle and state and everything like that, and kind of makes it a lot easier to be able to actually change the state. So let me go ahead and add the handle click in here. And we use an arrow function because we don't want it to be immediately evoked when we start rendering. So make sure to have that in there. So let's go ahead and import React useState. And you just make sure you import it up top before you use it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to console.log so you guys can actually see what useState actually does. So console.log. Let's log it over here. Put this up a little bit. Let's go to console. So when you log it, what you're going to see here is you're going to see the function, and you're going to see the initial state. So basically, it's returning a function and the value that you put into it. And we're going to go ahead and put the value in the function in there. That way you guys can see how we do it. So we're going to go ahead and put value and state. And what it is basically it's an array of the function and the value. So I'm just going to do it like this so you guys can see exactly like what it looks like. And then you have the function here. So I'm putting it in the next array value, and then I'm just going to console.log these. And then let's look at the bottom down here. Just refresh. So here you can just see all the different things that are logged, the function, the value right here, and then the function that's going to be invoked. So let's go ahead and do it the more traditional way. Let's go ahead and comment this. So you want to start by creating the actual array. So usually you want to name the value, whatever it is, whether it be text or image or an object or whatever. And then you want to name the value like you're setting it. So set text. So I'm actually setting the text with that function. And then when you say use state, you want to put the default value that it is. So that would be hello world. So what I just did here was I set the default value of text to be hello world. And then I'm going to use set text to actually update the text value here. And I'm going to put that inside of the handle click, and you guys are going to see how that works in a second. So over here, we're actually going to invoke the set text method. And we're going to name it, let's just say random title. Go ahead and save that. And let me go ahead and put this inside. There we go. Also, whenever you're using the useState hook, you want to make sure the hook is actually inside of the component, because the scope is only inside of the component for that. So I have my click handler, and I have my button here. So when I go ahead and click here, it should be setting the text to random title. I'm doing something wrong here. That's text. Oh, that's why. So I'm also gonna make sure to put the variable in here. So yeah. So this text variable is the same text variable that's here. That's the one I'm going to be updating when I click it. So when I click it, that's going to invoke the useState and a setText method, and it's going to set the text to be the random title. So let's add some if statements here so I can kind of have like a toggle thing going here. So text, if text equals, let's say, hello world. And it's going to do that. Else, we want to change it to random. So yeah, you can have a little toggle thing going on here. So that's the beauty of the hooks. It makes it super easy to just literally just make changes in your components, re-render them, and all of that. So you can pretty much use this state and use, like in here, you can put whatever JavaScript variable or object you want. And here you can put any function to update this value here. You can put arrays, you can put objects, you can put whatever inside that you want. So now that you know the basics of this, let me go ahead and show you also the way this would work in a class component. So state class components handle states a lot differently. They don't use functions. They don't use hooks at all. What they use is called just state, but they use the this keyword, and they use constructors and props and all that good stuff. So let me go ahead and show you what that looks like. Component. So we have our good old class component here. And first thing we want to do is we want to do our constructor. So every time that we want to use state inside of a class component, we want to make sure to use a constructor. So we're going to have that. And then we want to grab our props from whatever parent component is going to be in there. And then we add our state down here by doing this.state. We call the state object, and then we go ahead and add whatever object, whatever string, whatever array, whatever we want inside of this state object. And it's going to be held inside here, and we can access it and change it. So what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and add a title, and it's going to be the same thing. So basically, this hook replaces everything that's in here. It replaces the whole state object and the constructor and props and all that good stuff. So it's kind of a lot easier to use this, but you're probably going to run across using class components here and there. So it's good to at least kind of know how they work.
Hey, I'm sorry. Are you taking questions? My bad. Real quick. So you extended so you did this constructor, right? You created you did this this like function. So were you saying is this is the longer way of doing what you did on the top, or?
Yeah. So React has different ways of doing React components. You can either do them in functions, or you can do them in classes. So
got it.
I'll show you another example here for the books.
Oh, got it. So what you did on the first one, you just created a function, but on this one, you created a class.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, got it. My bad.
Yeah. So yeah, and same thing here. Like it's just the same exact. You can do the same exact thing, but it's just different syntax. Functions are a lot simpler in my opinion. They make it a lot easier. But like if you're looking at older React code, or there are certain situations where you may actually want to use a class over a function. So it's good to know the difference between the two. But yeah, so I'm literally just gonna do the same exact thing, but just different syntax. You're just using React JavaScript classes instead of functions. So we have our state right here. In the same way we stored it with the default value, we put the default value here. Let's actually make it hello world instead. And now we need to have our render method. So class components always have a render method in every class. So you want to make sure to have that. And then also our return. And we're just going to go ahead and just start. Actually, I'm just going to copy and paste what we have here. We're just going to replace this. We're going to return the same exact Java JSX. So we're going to put our handle click in here as well. But instead, I'm just going to put it inside of here instead. Actually, no, I can put it up top. So I'm just going to copy and paste the handle click from up top. So we have our handle click. But over here, instead of set text, we're going to have to use state. So you have to use this keyword because we're inside this class and we need to refer to the state, which is right here. So we're going to do this.state.title, or this.setState actually. So we're going to do the this.setState, and then we're going to access the title variable, and then we're going to change it to our new title. And then the same thing down here, this.setState, and change it to this title over here. And over here, we also need to access it. So this.state.title. And what is it saying? Text is not defined. Oh, this.state.title. And handle click is not defined. Oh, we gotta do this back. That's another thing about classes. You always have to use this keyword when you pretty much anytime you're referring to anything that's in the class, you have to use this keyword because of the scopes of the class. Every class has its own scope, and then you have to just refer to it like that. So this here is literally the same thing as let's just say that. I'm not sure why it's giving me that error, but anyways, class components are just annoying. But this is literally the same thing as this here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of this class component here. Let's go ahead and refresh. All right. So we have our nice little state component here. And so now that we know how to use state with just like a random string, we're going to go ahead and do it with an array now. So were there any questions on how we use hooks or how we use state in this functional example here? All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to add some functionality to this page over here. So instead of using just the state right here, we're going to, every time we click buy now, we're going to add a little purchase thing here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and go to our book component. And what we're going to do is we're going to add just a paragraph here. And Make sure to add that one there. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to add state into here. So we're going to name this purchased and set purchased useState, and we're gonna leave it empty for now. The default value of purchase to be empty. I'm gonna make sure to add it in here. Yes, make sure to put it inside of the component. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that hello right there. All right. Okay, so go ahead and add our value here. It's gonna be empty. And now we're going to change the click handler here to actually update the state of our value here. So we're going to do set purchased is going to be purchased. So every time we click buy now, we purchased our book. So super little simple change that we added here. But you can see how you can use React hooks to add quick updates to your program. So that's books. Any questions on what I did there? All right. So now let's go ahead and we're going to, now we're instead of just doing the simple text changes that we were doing, we're going to go ahead and do an array with useState now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to add a wishlist component on the right side of the page. And every time that we click, we're going to add a add to wishlist button here. Every time that we click add to wishlist, it's going to add, it's going to append this book to our wishlist component over here that we're going to have. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to add a wishlist button over here. So we can open up our books.js and we're going to add a button. This button's going to be add to wish list. So we have our little add to wish list button there. And what we need to do though is we need to make sure to add a prop that's going to hold the click handler for this button. That way we can use it. And well, actually, no, we're not going to need a prop because I'm just going to put this all in one component. But yeah, we're going to have our click handler here. And let me go ahead and go over here to book list. And we're going to go ahead and add our wish list component as well. So let me see where I'm at. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to add an array. And this array is going to hold all of our wish list data. And it's going to be empty for now because there's nothing in it. We're going to append our values to this array here. And so we have our div book list here. So we're going to add another div. This div is going to be the wish list. And what we want to do is we're going to let's see what I do. Have our little wish list header. And we're going to basically map across this wish list array But first, actually, let's go ahead and add the state up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our state, and then we're going to have a click handler that's going to update the state. So we have our book state. Well, actually, I'll name it wish list. And our set wish list. I need to add useState here. All right. Comma. We're going to set the default value to be our wish list data. I'll capitalize this. There we go. All right, so we're setting, now instead of passing just a string, we're passing an actual full array. So this is an empty array right now, but we're going to be adding values to this array here. So we have our state, and then also we're going to have our handle click here. Add to wish list. So we're gonna name this function add to wish list, and it's gonna accept.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
For the wish list data, can it still be constant even though we're adding stuff into that array?
Yeah, we can append to it, but since we're not actually changing like the reference value of it to be something else. Well, you can add stuff to it as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and add the add to wish list. And we're going to accept one action. Let's just name it book. And what we're going to do here, let me actually finish off this over here. I'll leave this empty for now. But that's going to be our handle click for the actual updating of the state. So what we're going to do is we're going to render the, we're going to map out the values that are actually going to be in the wish list data. So wish list is over here. So we're going to do wish list map and have our book here. And we want to make sure to get everything that we want from this book object. So we're going to get ID, we're going to get title, we're going to get author, because we're going to render all those three different values. And then the next thing we want to do is just want to return the div. Enter here. And then in this div, what we're going to do is actually here the class name. So we want to make sure always to have the key so it doesn't throw us random warnings. And then also the plasm in there so we install it if we want to. And then here we're going to be just returning, let's do H4. We're going to return the title of the book, and then also the author. So we'll do a P. So title and author, that's what we're going to be returning. So basically it's just a map function that's going to map over every book that's in the wishlist data, and it's going to render out what we have. So now what we need to do is we need to, we're actually going to add another button. So, okay, so our wish is already showing. So we're going to add a button down here that's going to clear out the whole wish list. So if we ever want to get rid of everything that's on the wish list, we're going to add this button here. So this button is going to remove everything that's currently in the wish list. So what we're going to do also is we're going to have an on click because we need to update the state. If we're going to remove something, we're going to have to update the state. So what this is going to do is going to set wish list. So set wish list, and what we're going to set the wish list to is an empty array. So this button here is going to clear everything that is inside of the wish list. So we have our map to map out everything. We have our button to clear everything that's in the wish list if we need to, if we want to. And over here is where we're going to start to do the adding of the stuff to the array. So we want to add a temp value basically. So we'll name this the new wish list item. And this is going to, we're going to call the concat method. What the concat method basically just adds it to the end. So we're adding the book over here to the wish list array here. And then after that, we're going to make sure to update the state. So set wish list to the new array here. So this is getting put into this new array, and then we're updating it here. All right, so before we're done, there's one more thing that we need to add. And we need to connect this button basically to, we need to connect this button through a prop to this component here. So what we need to do in books.js is we're going to pass an onClick method as a prop. So we have our onClick method here. And we're just gonna name it props dot, let's name it handler, or just add. So I'm not actually using the props here. I'm gonna add it up here. Since the way I constructed the component, I added all the props in the actual, I passed them to the parameters instead of doing props. So we're gonna pass a prop through the onClick method. That way we can access it inside of the book list here. So any questions on that? Did that make sense to you guys?
I'm good.
All right, so in the book component, so here, so this is the book component that's over here. So since we just added that prop, we're going to access it, and we're going to add this click handler that we added there inside of here. So, and we're going to, let's name it add to, there we go. And we want to add the book in here. So now, I think that's everything we need. Boom. So now, any of these books that we click here, we're going to add to wish list, is going to get added down here. So pretty cool. We basically, what we did was we connected two components through props, and then through the use of state, we're able to append to this array here, and then render them out through here. And we can clear it if we want to, keep adding as many as we want. One thing though to keep in mind is, since we're not using a unique ID for each one, it's the same ID, it's going to give us a warning at the end. But you can import libraries to like automatically generate a random ID if you want to. So before we're done with that, let's go ahead and add some CSS to make it look a little bit nicer. So we're gonna access wishlist. Did I put the class name in there? Let's make sure. Yeah. All right. So go ahead and make the background color white and add a border radius. And then put some padding. And let's see what it looks like now. All right, cool. Also need to add the flex container. So flex containers, that way we can align them side by side. All right, coolio. And then let's make the height fit the content. Cool. And we'll add some padding and margins. Make it look a little bit better. All right, cool. All right. And I believe that's it. I mean, look what it looks like. Cool. So yeah, we're able to add our books to it. Looks really nice. We can clear the state if we need to. And yeah, that's a pretty cool application of state that we added to our little app here. Was there any questions on that? Alrighty. Yeah, I went through that pretty fast. That's pretty much all I had for today on state. You guys have any more questions regarding state or anything in the code you want to look into a little bit deeper or mess around with? We're free to do that as well for the remaining time. Or we can just end early. It's up to you guys.
Could you go back to the class?
Yeah, the class one?
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at, I'll give you a couple examples of how to use class. So when you have an actual, a class component here, this is how you would just render it. You would need the render method, and the props work differently though. You're gonna have to use the this dot keyword and make sure that you access the props. That's the way it's gonna look. Let me actually just go ahead and grab the code for the class component. And if you want to know the main difference between functional and class components, Twilio has this really good article that I'll put in the resources. And they explain it like really simply, every single difference between functional and class components. So I'll go ahead and put that in resources for you guys to look at as well. But let me grab the code that I had for the class component. Where was it here? So this is another example. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in the state over here. And I'll render it that way you can just see what it looks like. All right. And let's go put that in the index. All right, let's see what it looks like. So many tabs open. All right, there we go. All right, so we can look at it a little bit more in depth. So instead of using a hook like you would use over here, I'll compare. Let's see if I can compare the two line by line. Let me put this side by side with this one over here. That's my split screen. All right, so this is basically replaced by this here. So we would use a constructor and props, and we need the super props and this dot state, because we have to access the state by using this keyword. And then in the state object, we can put whatever we want. And with hooks, we can put whatever we want here, an object or whatever, or an array, but we have our function here to actually update the state. Here, we have the set state function that basically updates it. So you can see here, set state, title equals hello world. But you're gonna have to always use this keyword when you're accessing state, this dot state dot title, you see here, because you're inside of a class. But instead, in the functional, you can just access wishlist whenever you want without having to use this keyword, because it's a functional component. So yeah, the main difference is really just the constructor. You're gonna have to like put the props in the constructor and put the state in the constructor, so that way it goes across the entire class. Whenever you're referring to state, you have to use this dot state, and title is inside of the state object. So whatever else you want to add, so if I added like description, whatever, I can access that as well here. But we're updating this value here in the title value. So if I wanted to switch that around, I could. And whatever value I'm switching, or whatever value I want to access, it has to be inside of the state object. And then use the set state function to actually update it. So
okay. So can you also use the set state to like hide components?
You can. You need to do that with CSS, or you can use like a ternary operator to like what error is it giving me? You can use like a ternary operator to like either render or like not render. So like I'm trying to think how that would look like. So it's just a lot more confusing in the class component.
I mean, you can do it in a functional. I just wanted to see the syntax for the class, since you said that a lot of older React code has it.
Yeah, it's gonna look the same exact way. You're gonna have to use a ternary operator here, and then like you can either do it with CS, you can also do it with CSS instead. You can just like update it, or you can do it with a ternary operator and say, okay, when the state is, let's say the state is like not shown, you can use like a Boolean here, or you just make a Boolean true. So when the state is true, you can return this. But when the state is false, you can return another component. So you can have like conditional rendering. And let me see in the React. I know in the React docs they have conditional rendering, because they probably explain a lot better. Yeah, so like, I mean, you can just use you can use an if statement. Where there was a better example here.
Yeah, because I was having.
So yeah, here. But go ahead.
Yeah, because I think 2 weeks ago I was doing. Me and Clement were doing a full JS app, and one of the features that we couldn't do was having like a login or a registration thing. So we wanted certain components to be hidden if the user wasn't signed in.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be like this right here. So like, basically, I mean, there's also like Redux, which is like a whole nother complicated way of doing it in React. That I think I'm gonna get to that at the end of the semester. And that kind of handles authentication, everything like that. But what you can do is you can have a state for like when the user's logged in. So when the user's logged in, see here. So when user's logged in, you can either render this or you can render this. So here he's saying, okay, the login button is going to get rendered, or it's not going to get rendered. And he's using the state here that is logged in. So whenever, and he updates it by using these handles right here. So he handles a login click and the logout click. The logout click sets it to false, logged in sets it to true. And then he has another button, another const here to accept the state. And the button basically changes based on whether it's false or true. So yeah, you can use if statements or the ternary operator, but it has to be based off of the state. So like the condition inside of the if statement is going to be a state because that's what you're going to be toggling. So you're going to want to use like a true or false value and put that inside of the condition for the if statement, and then you can render whatever you want. So
right.
when the user is authenticated, you could render a whole different page if you want to.
All right. And do the React docs usually show the code in like class based?
So they do for the beginning. That's why I mean the beginning of the React docs are all right. I found just like honestly just going on YouTube was better for React. But once for the whole beginning of it is all in like class components. But once you get to the advanced guides, so I think it was hooks. Hooks is where they actually start to show you how to use state with hooks and everything like that, which is honestly, I find it a lot easier than using the classes. But there's different, and if you read this article here, it shows you the difference when you should use a class component and when you should use a functional component. So it really just depends because for like class components, you may want to use them if you're like, I don't know, if you're gonna have to use this keyword for anything or like, it's just there's different situations for each one, but the functional and class components are just completely different. They have completely different ways of doing state, completely different ways of mounting life cycle and everything like that. So it depends on your use case. But yeah, most of the documents are actually in class components until you get to the advanced guides. They give you the fundamentals in class components.
All right, thanks.
But yeah. Any other questions or anything on state or class components before we close it off? Alrighty.
All right, thanks.
Dope,
Thanks for the workshop, bro.
Appreciate it, bro. All right, guys, you have a great rest of your day.
All right, bro. Thanks. Appreciate it. Later.
Thanks, man. So much, Nate. This was awesome.
Take it easy.
Mm-hmm.